And welcome back to another episode of the Ball Watchers podcast. I am your host, Evan Blust, alongside my co-host, Joseph Muto. Joseph, how are you doing today?
I'm so happy, man. How are you?
Dude, I'm doing great, man. I mean, we're in the middle of kind of the or the dead season before the draft here for football, but there's still a couple big stories that broke
Mm-hmm.
that we'll get to right away here. But did you watch any of that flag football
I watched the
showdown?
highlights. Tom Brady looks like he should be the next quarterback
I
for the
know,
Raiders, and
seriously.
Jalen Hurts looks like prime Jalen Hurts with all his interceptions. So it
I
was
know. I
great.
was laughing at that. I was like, damn, how do you go out here? Like, I feel like the NFL in general didn't really
Yeah,
show up great there, which, I mean, honestly kind of makes sense. I'm not entirely surprised. Like, it's almost a different sport in a lot of
I know.
ways. But
Yeah,
yeah, Jalen Hurts just like,
getting sacked by Logan Paul was embarrassing.
yeah,
Oh my
a pick
gosh.
six. I think Joe Burrow threw a pick six too. Like, it was
Yeah,
just,
he almost tore his ACL on one play. That
oh,
was so
man.
scary for a
Dude, I feel
flag
like Joe
football
Burrow
game.
should not be allowed to do
No.
any of that stuff in the offseason, man. It's just keep that guy in a box and do not let him come out. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. But before we get into more about the Flag Football League, we've got some NFL news to cover. We're also doing a bit of a mailbag today. So we've got some questions that we came up with. We've got some questions from the listeners. Shout out Tyler and Parker, specifically friends of the show. They came up with a bunch of questions for us, which was very helpful. So we'll get to a bunch of those, but we're starting off here with the news. Big trade dropped right after we recorded last
Yeah,
week,
bad
pretty
timing.
much.
That's
I think it
okay.
was like the next day or
Yeah.
something, which is unfortunate, but it gives us something to talk about this week because we had a lot to talk about last week.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jalen Waddle is traded from the Dolphins to the Broncos. The Broncos give up a first round pick, a third round pick, and a fourth round pick, and the Broncos get Jalen Waddle, obviously, and a fourth round pick. So, pretty big haul for Jalen Waddle, Joseph, and the Broncos get a number one receiver.
I love this move for the Broncos. I'll get to the Dolphins in a second, but on a more positive note, like the Broncos, this is exactly what they needed. I thought Cortland Sutton is a great wide receiver number one, but he's just not in that elite caliber. In neither is Jalen Waddle, but if you combine both these guys on the same team, both very different wide receivers. Cortland Sutton is a 50-50 guy who could catch it deep down the field, and Jalen Waddle is an absolute burner who can go over the middle of the field. He can get short plays, screen action, which Sean Payton absolutely loves. Jalen Waddle is going to get a ton of touches in this offense, a lot of design plays, which is where Waddle thrived. Like his best years in Miami is when Mike McDaniel was giving him the football in specific situations, and that's exactly what you're going to see for Denver. So I thought they were like incredible, and you don't give up that much. I mean, Evan said it so beautifully last week. It's like the first round picks in this draft are not as like sought after as previous years because the talent is down. And when you have the 30th overall pick, like what would they possibly do with that draft pick?
Yeah.
You had a second round pick in RJ Harvey last year. You're not wasting it on a running back. And outside of that, there's no holes on this team. Like the 30th overall pick is going to be, if you draft a wide receiver, significantly worse than Jalen Waddle. Maybe you draft CJ Allen, but he's like your linebacker two behind Alex Anzalone. So, like, this team is Super Bowl bound. They should have made the Super Bowl last year had it not been for a Bo Nix injury. You bring in Jalen Waddle for basically nothing. It's just a no-brainer move. This was, to me, one of the best wide receivers on the market. I didn't even think he was going to be on the market, but the fact that you acquired him and you were already a Super Bowl contending team, like I can't say enough good things about this move for the Broncos. And people might say it's an overpay for a first round pick for a guy who's probably not reached his peak form, but to me, it's the perfect price. And I think you get Jalen Waddle in a proper offense. The sky's the limit for this dude.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of it for the Broncos. I think last year we saw somewhat the limitations of Cortland Sutton. He's not a guy who necessarily can be your high volume receiving target. He's definitely a guy who can make big plays on the outside. He's a red zone threat for sure, but he wasn't the target down to down for Bo Nix on a lot of those plays. And I think that getting a guy like Jalen Waddle in there makes a ton of sense for me. I mean, he's a guy who is great on all levels of the football field. He's great with the ball in his hands after the catch. So I think this is exactly what the Broncos offense needed. It's going to be interesting to see how they use him in a lot of scenarios. I also wonder what it will look like with Bo Nix, just because I think that in some ways that passing offense really lived and died with Bo Nix, and he was a little bit inconsistent at times last season, and their defense really kept them in some games when the offense wasn't working. But it feels like having two really reliable wide receivers in a Jalen Waddle and a Cortland Sutton feels like something that can potentially elevate Bo Nix's game. I think you just have a guy like Jalen Waddle who, just because of his speed and his ability to create separation, becomes a bit of a safety blanket if Bo Nix needs it. And then you still have a guy like Cortland Sutton who honestly might even be used more now that there's someone opposite him who's taking a bit more of the pressure away from him when it comes to like the defense, where Cortland Sutton might truly have a lot more one-on-one matchups last year, and that's exactly what you want from a guy like Cortland Sutton. So I love it from that perspective. I think you're right about the first round pick. The one thing, it's a lot of capital, I would say, overall. Like the Broncos don't have a lot of picks in this draft this year now when you give up a first, a third, and a fourth, but you still have a second round pick. You still have some later round picks. So they're not like fresh out. And like you said, they do have a very strong team at this moment. It's not like they really need a ton of pieces to create depth. And I think that they definitely added a piece that was possibly something that they needed the most. So I really like it from that perspective. And then from the Dolphins' perspective, I think it makes a lot of sense too. Obviously, I am a bit questionable of the move just because of the fact that you're really leaving Malik Willis out to dry here. Like there is no one on this roster that you really can rely on to catch passes. I mean, you have Darren Waller coming off retirement. I mean, he was actually pretty solid last year, but I don't know if that's a guy you can rely on fully. I don't even know if he'll be there next season, to be honest, at this point. I don't know. I'm not even sure he's 100% on the roster at this point, but he was there last year. And outside of that, I mean, you have, I can't even think of the receivers right now. Tyreek Hill's
No.
gone. There is the Malik Washington, I think is his name, who was their number 3 receiver and is now, I guess, their number 1 receiver because there's really nothing in that cupboard right now. So it just makes that Malik Willis move, I think, even more confusing because how are you supposed to get a good read on a guy like Malik Willis when there truly is nothing around him on that offense except for Devon Achan? And honestly, it begs the question, who else is available on this team?
Yeah, I think it's a terrible move from the Dolphins just because, like, I understand that you're in a rebuild situation, but you have to have some cornerstone pieces. And I thought Achan combined with Jalen Waddle and you bring in Malik Willis, like there is some potential with this offense. And there's not a lot because this offensive line is absolutely desecrated. And there's not a number 2 wide receiver, but there's enough with Jalen Waddle there. But like, to what extent does the rebuild process like supersede guys who are not making a lot of noise? Like you heard all the animosity with Tyreek Hill in the locker room. You get rid of him, he's a cancer, he's old, that's fine. We didn't hear one peep out of Jalen Waddle demanding a trade or like saying he's not getting the ball enough. He was primed to be a wide receiver number 1. He's such a speedster. He wasn't getting the opportunity because he was behind an elite wide receiver in Tyreek Hill. Now he gets that opportunity. Don't you want to see like the true potential of this guy? Like I understand you have to pay him, but who else are you really paying on this team? I would much rather them have Quinn Ewers throwing Jalen Waddle the ball than Malik Willis, who's throwing to basically no one. So I don't understand that move at all. And it's not like you're going to replace this guy with your draft capital that you accumulated. I mean, the 11th overall pick, Jordan Tyson's stock is going down because he's not doing his pro day. That injury is more of a concern, I think, for NFL GMs. And if you draft like what, Makai Lemon 11th overall, like what is the difference between him and Jalen Waddle? Jalen Waddle is a proven wide receiver and can play outside. Makai Lemon is only really a slot guy. So like Evan said again last week, I'll refer to him again. I hate when teams, trade away guys just so they can draft their replacements that year. Like you already have the guy in house. You already know that Jalen Waddle and Devon Achane are the only 2 elite guys on this roster. Yes, you are in a rebuild position, but you can rebuild with those guys in house. It makes 0 sense to move away from Jalen Waddle, especially when he didn't even want out the door.
And it made sense to draft a receiver before they got rid of Waddle.
Yeah.
And now it's just like you basically have to. So I don't know. It really forces their hand. And then, yeah, they get the 30th overall pick. But like you said, who's really going to be there at the end of that first round that's going to be a game changer, it feels like, in this draft? And I don't know who that player really is off the top of my head, and I don't really know where they go with that pick. So it's going to be interesting. I honestly feel like they're going to focus more on defense at the end of that first round than on offense. But yeah, you're just in a weird spot here where Jalen Waddle was also under contract. Like
Yeah.
he was expensive, but at this, or he was more expensive than a rookie, but he was contract controlled for the next couple seasons. It wasn't like a guy who was a free agent at the end of this season and you're going to have to pay him. Like I feel like
Mhm.
he had a couple years left on the contract there. So it's just a weird move. At the same time, you get a decent return, I guess, for a guy like that. So you can't be all mad. It's just they're really cleaning house. I mean, there's not a lot of like recognizable, well-known names on this Miami Dolphins team anymore, and they're gonna be. They might be the worst team in the league next
Oh, for
season. I don't
sure.
know what's gonna happen, and I don't know. I'm surprised Malik Willis signed up for this too. It feels like why go to Miami if you're just gonna lose? Like you might as there was other teams that would have signed you
Yeah.
where you could have at least had a chance to win some games here.
Yeah. Brutal, brutal play.
Exactly. And the other bit of news here is JSN. He signs a 4-year, $168 million extension with the Seahawks. They picked up his first or fifth year option last week, so this contract won't kick in till 2 seasons from now, but he is locked up long term here. I love this move as a Seattle Seahawks fan.
Yeah, this is a great move for JSN and the Seahawks organization. Like, this is exactly what you needed to do. This was priority number one, and they did exactly that. So good for them. If 42 million is the market value, I mean, Jamar Chase was the Triple Crown winner 2 years ago. He gets signed to a $41 million per year deal. JSN, receiving leader, offensive player of the year, and you see the results. $42 million a year is the market value, especially when he had a season that he did. And who knows? I think that fifth year option is so crucial, like you said, because 2 years down the road, this might be a steal. We might see other wide receivers borderline $45 to $48 million per year. If you can get JSN this extension right now, I think it's beautiful. So the Seahawks have had a very, very bad offseason, in my opinion, but this is a step in the right direction. You re sign him, you extend Devin Witherspoon later down the road, which I think is now priority number one for Schneider and this front office. Outside of that, I think they're pretty golden to run it back. So you get your guy, and JSN is going to be one of the best wide receivers in the NFL when this contract kicks in.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, it is a huge contract, but I love it. I'm a huge fan of this. I think he proved that he can be your really only weapon in the receiving game, and it still allows your offense to be good, which is crucial for Seattle right now because they don't really have a lot of other known commodities at receiver right now. So they need JSN to be that guy. I think getting ahead of it like they did is huge. I mean, there's going to be Puka Nakua's coming up on a
Mm-hmm.
contract here. He's a guy who 100% could get top of the market receiving money. So doing it before the Rams sign Nakua, number one, puts pressure on a division rival and is going to force him to shell out even more money. And number two, you save a bit of money by doing that for JSN, even though he is the best receiver, maybe not in the league, but he was the best receiver in the league last season. So you got to love it for Seattle here. And I think you're right. Devin Witherspoon's the next domino to fall here. They need to do it very soon if I'm Seattle because, again, you want to save as much money as possible here. And getting that guy under contract is going to do that. Having these kick in the next couple seasons, I mean, you have a bit of cap room to play with going into
Mm-hmm.
next season as well, where you can sign some guys. So they're keeping that Super Bowl window open with a move like this. I think it's not going to crush the cap right away, and with the way the salary cap's increasing, I mean, this looks like it's going to be a steal coming down the road here, in my opinion. And the other thing is, I was looking at the contract, and it looks like at worst, like you can get out of this contract in two seasons after.
Oh,
So
wow.
if there is any issues, I think it's only like $19 million in dead cap. You save some money.
Okay.
So 2 years after he signed, like going into the third year on the contract, there is an option to get out of it. I mean, you're hoping you don't have to do that. You're hoping JSN is still one of the best receivers in the league at that point. But I think that this is also just structured really well. It's in some ways a team friendly deal. So I really like it for both sides. Good for JSN. I mean, he's only what, a year older than us, and he just signed the highest contract
That's crazy.
uh for a receiver in the NFL. So I mean, good on him, man. That's awesome. And yeah, I'm just praying they can get this Witherspoon deal signed as soon as possible. Hopefully, that's something we're talking about next episode.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's get into the mailbag here. We're gonna start off with our questions, and then we can do the listener questions next. All right. The first question here, with the rise of the reject QB, Sam Darnold, for example, will quarterbacks stay longer in college to avoid a disastrous start to the NFL? We've seen guys like Tyler Shuck, who was what was he, 25 or something
Yeah.
coming into this
Mhm.
season, so stayed in college quite a long time, and he really hit the ground running. We saw Dante Moore, the quarterback of Oregon, decide to stay in college, even though there was some mock drafts putting him at like second overall at the end of that college football season. So do we see quarterbacks stay longer in college to develop here?
I think they will, just because that NIL money is so good. But at the same time, I don't think that they should, just because like you have a guy like Dante Moore who was supposed to go second overall to the Jets. He decides to go back to Oregon for one more year. The Jets are probably going to get the second overall pick next year. So what has really changed for Dante Moore and his situation? He's praying that another team will pick him up. Well, like you're going to be a top 5 pick, you are going to have problems with that franchise because they have a top 5 pick. Like it's more about the teams not developing these quarterbacks properly and instead wanting immediate results right away. And that's the number one problem. It shouldn't be, I'm going to wait another year so I get a better opportunity. Those opportunities are never going to come because you're such a highly sought after elite player at a premier position. Of course, you're going to go to a bad team because you're going to be a high overall pick. It's just a matter of these bad teams wanting to stay bad and like developing their quarterbacks. Whatever happened to benching QBs? Like, why do they have to start week one with a terrible roster, bring up backup guys? Like, why couldn't Dante Moore be the second overall pick, have Geno Smith play the first 4 weeks, and then Dante Moore come in there, and then you can build from there? Like, that used to be the trend 10 years ago. Now, all of a sudden, it's you are a top 5 pick. You are supposed to produce results right away. And very rarely is that successful. Like, you have a handful of quarterbacks, handful of guys who are just like superstars, but you're not going to get that every single time, especially when you don't have the infrastructure, the coaching staff, and the talent around them in order to bring out their full potential. So I think quarterbacks will follow this trend just because of NIL money and they want a better situation, but it's never going to happen until these teams adjust to what it used to be and sit and just wait for these guys 3 or 4 years to develop. Then that's the only way that this trend is going to shift, because you see Sam Darnold, they gave up on him so quickly. He moves on, finds a better situation, Super Bowl champion. Baker Mayfield, he had a great couple years in Cleveland, took him to a couple playoff appearances, still not good enough. He goes to Tampa Bay, he's a top 10 quarterback in the league. Like, you have to stay patient. You have to build around these guys. It is not going to happen overnight for most of these guys, and the fact that you think it will is a bit premature from these NFL teams.
Yeah, I know it's tough. I actually do think that because of, like you said, with NIL and also the transfer portal, that quarterbacks will stay in college longer because you can make money. You're making really good money, and the transfer portal allows you to be a bit more selective of where you go. Like these quarterbacks can actually go play in NFL style offenses, and I think in the past that's been a big issue. I mean, you even look at guys like, I mean, even JJ McCarthy, to be honest, Michigan was not even close to an NFL style offense. Like they're just trying to run the football as much as humanly possible and then take a few deep shots down the field. Like it's not run like an NFL style offense. And you see where there's so many like bumps in the road when you're not used to that NFL style of play versus I think you can think of some other universities like in Alabama and Oregon where I think they do play a bit more of a pro style offense, and these quarterbacks like a Justin Herbert can hit the ground running a bit better. But these quarterbacks can now go, okay, well, I want to go play at Oregon or I want to do whatever to help them kind of get used to that NFL offense before they actually have to go play in the NFL. But I think you're totally right where I think that will help. I think the development is going to help you become a bit more mature It gives you a bit more time to just be in a weight room, get big, get strong before you're forced into the like highest level of play. But at the same time, it is really the fact of if quarterbacks are doing that, I also think that NFL teams need to prioritize building the rest of their roster before they draft a quarterback. Like, not that quarterbacks should be valued less and taken lower in the draft, but just that you have to build out your offensive line, your receiving core. Like, there just has to be something around these guys because, I mean, we've seen it with the Jets before. It's like Garrett Wilson and a terrible offensive line with a rookie quarterback like Zach Wilson. It didn't work and it was a disaster. And I mean, some of that is Zach Wilson wasn't that good, but at the same time, some of that is just what else, like what are you supposed to do in that situation? So I think that the importance of building out those rosters around the quarterback is really important, and potentially even before you go and draft that next franchise level quarterback. And it puts you in a weird spot when you have a roster like that where maybe you are a bit better and you don't necessarily get the number one overall pick, but and which is why there's somewhat that urgency when you do have the number one overall pick. But at the same time, is it better to even draft a guy in like the second round with a better roster? You might get farther than you think. And that's what I think that Saints case is so interesting is because I don't even know if I would say they really had the pieces around him. I mean, I thought they were going to be terrible last year, so I really didn't believe in the Saints, but their offensive line was pretty average. Outside of Chris Olave, there's really no receiving options. Alvin Kamara is kind of a shell of his former self at this point. So it was an interesting experience, but or like interesting situation for Tyler Shuck to come into. But then you look at what they did, and they didn't play him immediately, right? Like it was a camp battle, and Spencer Rattler ended up winning, but Rattler couldn't get it done, and Tyler Shuck came in, and this offense looked completely different. And you gave him some time. You don't even have to give him the full season, but they gave him half a season, 3/4 of a season, and look what happened, and look at the kind of promise that you feel going into the next season. Like I feel like it makes so much sense to not only let these guys develop more in college, but let them develop more in the NFL, like you're saying, Joseph. All right. Next question here. How important is positioning yourself on the right team for head coaching candidates getting a job or for getting a job? Declan Doyle this offseason, for example, he was the offensive coordinator of the Bears. He went kind of a lateral move to the Ravens, but it's a spot where he's going to get more exposure. Ben Johnson's not taking the credit for the offensive kind of play calling and things like that. Even Mike McDaniel, he was at least interested, or teams were interested in him as head coach, but he ultimately decides to go the offensive coordinator route this season with the Chargers to maybe get a better look.
It's a risk reward thing for sure because you are a part of a tree, and I think with like a Mike LaFleur, because he's part of that Sean McVay tree, that's why he gets the job from the Cardinals. But you also have cases like Eric Bieniemy with the Chiefs, who should have been a head coach long before he never got the opportunity because he's in Andy Reid's shadow. So it's a catch-22 both sides. I just think that when you are exposed as like the sole primary like coordinator where your head coach isn't really a specialist in anything, you either get a head coaching job right away or you are easily fired. Like Ben Johnson. Everyone knew that was Ben Johnson's offense. Gets a head coaching job right away. He's one of the best offensive minds in the league. Last year, Kevin Patullo. No, everyone knows Nick Sirianni isn't really a specialist in anything. You are the sole offensive coordinator. Your offense sucks. You get fired from your job. So, like, it is very high risk, high reward. I think to me, it's just about the individual and what they bring to the style of offense or defense for that matter. We're seeing trends where lots of defensive coordinators are getting head coaching jobs over the last couple of years, and it's not just offensive heavy. But I think like you have to be so stout in your job, and in order to, be completely isolated, everyone knows you're the mind of your offense or your defense. You either get a head coaching job or you get fired. So I think it's a very risky position to be in, but it might pay off and it might not. So I think that's the level of head coach or coordinators and the price that they have to pay.
Yeah, I think it is tough because especially in a case like Declan Doyle with Ben Johnson, Ben Johnson's such a new head coach where you're almost not part of a tree yet, right? Where you being the offensive coordinator for Ben Johnson is not going to get you a head coaching job versus if you're under a more established head coach like a Sean McVay or a Kyle Shanahan or something like that, being their offensive coordinator, even though they are known as being offensive masterminds, is very valuable. And those guys get jobs. I mean, Mike LaFleur is the Cardinals head coach now. You saw the Seahawks sign the 49ers tight end coach as their new offensive coordinator. Like you get those upgraded positions. So I think that yeah, when you're under a guy like Ben Johnson, who's also just getting into it, that's a moment where you're like, okay, I need to spread my wings because he's too new where I'm probably not going to get a job. And I think it is so much about positioning. And I just thought it was interesting because I feel like we don't see those lateral moves as much. I mean, Clint Kubiak did the same thing with the Saints where that was a bit different though because I think when once Dennis Allen got fired, it was just the whole coaching staff got cleaned out versus like the coaching staff staying intact and someone leaving, just doing a lateral move to another team. That's a little less common, like you saw with Declan Doyle. But in that situation specifically, he goes from Ben Johnson being the guy calling the plays, everyone's talking about Ben Johnson, to going to, I mean, number one, you get Lamar Jackson as your quarterback. Like that's huge if you want to be an offensive coordinator. And at the same time, like Jesse Minter is very clearly the defensive guy on this team. Like you were getting all the credit for that offense. And like you said, it is a bit of a risk reward because if that offense sucks, you're out the door. But if that offense is good and the Ravens are really good next season and bounce back to what they've been the last 2 seasons before last year, I mean, you're going to get all the credit for that offense, and that could easily jumpstart your career. So I think it's a risk, but at the same time, in some cases, it is an almost necessary risk if you want to be a head coach because, like you said with Eric Bieniemy, if that guy wanted to be a head coach, he probably should have left sooner versus just sticking around with Kansas City. And he did win a bunch of Super Bowls, but no one's gonna remember him for winning those Super Bowls. I think you're all gonna think of Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo. So I think it's a necessary risk to prove yourself, right? It's either that it shows if you have the chops or not. And if you don't have the chops, you'll find that out very quickly. But if you do, I mean, that's the next step for you, I think. All right, next question here. Speaking of the flag football that we talked about before, will NFL players actually play flag football in the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles?
They probably will. I think they've promoted it a lot for the Olympics, and I think like Jalen Hurts is a big advocate for it. Justin Jefferson, and those are big time NFL names. It's just I don't think the Olympics should actually allow this to happen because everyone knows like there's not there's no one who plays football. Like NFL is dominate and like football is dominated by America, not even Canada. Like you have players in the CFL get completely obliterated by these NFL players. And I understand like it's more than just tackling and more than just IQ. It's a pure athletic sport when it comes to flag football, running around and keeping up. But like these wide receivers are trained to run perfect routes, and I don't care how fast you are, you can get open on Usain Bolt if he's your DB because of the elusiveness and the get off from the line of scrimmage. So I just think it would be extremely unfair. You don't need exposure in the NFL. Like you are already playing so many international games. You're playing around the world. The NFL is the highest paying North American sport. Like what are you proving by getting a gold medal in the Olympics? It just doesn't make any sense to me, and it should definitely not be an Olympic sport.
I think if this proved anything this weekend, it's that if NFL players do play, they'll probably lose. Honestly, like they were not good, and I just think I watched a video on this, but it's just like it's not the same, man. They're not. You're not built the same to play tackle football where you need all this size to withstand the contact versus flag football is non-contact. All you want to be basically as small and explosive as possible, and I mean it's just it doesn't work. I mean there's definitely guys from the NFL who could play, but I mean like you saw like Luke Kuechly was playing there. It's like what is that guy doing on a flag football field? Even a Saquon I don't think is necessarily that kind of guy. Like it would just have to be such specific NFL players, and at that point, no one's going to care. Is part of it. It doesn't really do anything for the sport. It's just making the actual flag football players pissed, and at the same time, like these flag football players practice flag football. Like I feel like I don't know. I honestly think they might lose, and I feel like it's too much of a risk. It's like the U.S. can't even win the World Baseball Classic. What happens if they lose flag football with a bunch of NFL players in the Olympics? Like it I feel like that's just a bad look, and it's honestly I think pretty possible because the NFL is just not set up for like playing flag football. You're not the right kind of athlete. Even the quarterbacks I don't really think necessarily match up the same. I think they're probably more accurate than the average flag football quarterback, but they're not athletic enough and they don't do the other things that you need to do as a quarterback, I think, to excel in flag football. So I don't think they should compete, and it's not necessarily a fairness thing. I just think that they would lose.
Wow, yeah, that's crazy. I think they would win, but like I
But
don't know.
I don't think an NFL player is that much more athletic. You know what I mean? Than
I
a
guess
flag
so.
football player. Like when it comes to the athleticism you need for flag football specifically, is an NFL player more athletic than a flag football player?
Yeah, you're right. Potentially, these guys are training their butts off
Yeah,
and
and
like
it's like if you're a
super
track
fast.
athlete or
Yeah,
something and you play flag football, like you're fast enough, and if you have
yeah.
that elusiveness, that's all you really need. Versus the NFL, it's just like, oh man, I really want to credit the video because they were talking about this, but I forget who was posting it. But like, it's just part of the thing with the NFL is what they're saying is like the size, this being that fast and athletic at that size versus
Yeah,
that literally
yeah.
does not matter
Mm-hmm.
at flag football. So Saquon's thick ass legs are irrelevant when you're playing flag football, and if anything, it's a detriment because there's more surface area to grab onto. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I honestly think they might lose.
Wow. I saw a clip of I Show Speed keeping up stride for stride with Devontae Smith, and I thought that
Exactly.
was the funniest thing
Dude,
ever.
he's so fast.
He's
It's
so
impressive.
fast.
I mean, that guy's insane, but he is very fast. All right, Joseph, your questions now.
All right.
Is getting a good deal or paying a huge amount of money to a player's contract overrated or underrated? For example, paying Miles Garrett $40 million, is that a bad contract based on price, especially when Tua and Deshaun Watson's contracts exist?
I don't know, dude. I think like the bad teams are always going to be the bad teams, and like they're going to sign bad contracts. So like for example, the bad contracts that are out there, Tua Tagovailoa, Deshaun Watson, Kyler Murray's contract, like the Dolphins, the Browns, and the Cardinals have been so bad for so long. Like it just gets amplified when, oh, that's a terrible contract. To me, it's just a terribly ran organization. You see Jordan Love at the same time take the same amount of money that Tua did. No one's saying that's a bad contract, even though I don't think he's living up to that contract. It's just they're in a winning situation because they're a blue blood franchise who has always been around.
He's also not playing as bad as Tua.
That's true. That's very true. But like at the same time, he's not like playing up to
Yeah.
$45 million a year type of money. But it gets significantly worse when you're on a bad team. Or even Trevor Lawrence. That's a terrible contract. But last year it makes up for it because like they're a playoff team. They win the AFC South. So it's just a matter of like these bad teams cannot be so hell bent on like getting that superstar player. They have to build through the draft, and I think Cleveland is a perfect example of learning from their mistakes. They thought they were a quarterback away. Turns out they had a better quarterback in house. They choose Deshaun Watson. That's a terrible contract. They lick their wounds. They're starting to build through the draft, and I think this is a team who can seriously compete within the next 2 years. Other teams have to take note of that. It's like, okay, you're a mediocre team. You do not have to sign Tua Tagovailoa to a $45 million per year contract. That's stupid business. But if you're a team that's competing and you've built through the draft and you have a foundation, then you can start paying those guys like the Packers did, like the Jaguars did, probably like the Houston Texans are going to do with CJ Stroud down the road. Like Lamar Jackson, like you built a team around him, then you sign the guy. It's not sign the guy first and then build around him. That just gets significantly worse because you have no wiggle room at that point. You're putting all your bred into this one basket of this one player contract. I just think it gets amplified with all these bad teams because they're not making the right decisions and they're not competing.
Yeah. I mean, I also think the value is weird. Like quarterbacks obviously are the most valuable guys and their just contracts get so overblown. Like going back to Miles Garrett, I mean, he is the best player at his position. Like and he is paid accordingly and it seems that I mean you look around like the JSN contract that was just signed, this Miles Garrett deal, like getting paid or like the quarterback contracts compared to other contracts are getting closer, I would say. Like $40 million for a top paid receiver is getting into like the top 10-ish range of quarterbacks. So it is squeezing the market a bit. I think people are realizing there's definitely more to the sport than just having the best quarterback in the league. So it's showing for that. And I think that it's a weird example too with Miles Garrett, just because Cleveland's like just offense versus defense is so different. Like their offense is terrible. They have like so much work to do there. And then their defense, like they have built through the draft. They found great players. They sign the guys who are crucially important to them, and they've been able to replace guys that aren't necessarily as good or they felt like they could replace to like with guys in the draft. So it's just like it's really weird because maybe it's a bad contract when you're a bad team to spend a bunch of money, but at the same time, like you kind of have to in some regards, especially for a guy like Miles Garrett. Like either you pay him that or someone else is going to. So it's like, do you want Miles Garrett on your team or not? And I think you also look at the Raiders with this, like that Tyler Linderbaum deal. We both said we like that, and it's a ton of money. That one's a crazy deal too, just because it's so much above the next highest paid player at Tyler Linderbaum's position, $9 million above the next center in Creed Humphrey there. So I mean, you can call that a severe overpay. I don't know if that's a good contract necessarily, but at the same time, it was a position of need, and you need to go out and get that guy, and you're building around Fernando Mendoza. So I think it's just looking at it maybe in a different way where it's worth it, and maybe it's a good deal when you're paying guys who actually deserve it and perform, right? Versus when you pay your quarterback who is a average quarterback like a Tua Tagovailoa or even below average in that case, or like a Brock Purdy or something, or even a Trevor Lawrence, where their floor is so high to get a ton of money and eat up a ton of your cap space. Maybe it's a quarterback specific thing where teams are going to start to be a bit more wary of spending that money on quarterbacks because other positions, if you're not doing that good, I mean, no one's going to pay you that kind of money versus even like a comparable amount, like with respect to other players at that position. But if you're like the top of your position, like a Tyler Linderbaum, like a Miles Garrett, they're going to pay you that money. So I think that it's almost like a shift from, oh, we just pay it. Like if this quarterback is serviceable, we're paying him a ton of money to, if this is not our guy, like see you later, man. Like, I don't know. The Brock Purdy deal, I mean, he made a ton of money, and I'm still skeptical of that contract personally. And like Trevor Lawrence as well. That was, they almost jumped the gun with that one a little bit.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, he was not great last season. He definitely turned it on at the end, and the Jags ended up having a really good season despite Trevor Lawrence's performances. But at the same time, is that a guy who you really should be paying $50 million?
Yeah, that's a big question. The quarterback market is going down significantly, which I love because it was
I
getting
know.
ridiculous.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens because, I mean, going back to that first question, too, it's just these like quarterbacks, these veteran guys who you don't have to pay a ton of money. I mean, teams have proven time and time again you can win with those guys. I mean, even the Vikings with Kirk Cousins, like he was never really a top of, I guess he was with Washington, but once he went to Minnesota, he was never the top of the market guy. And they won a ton of games with Kirk Cousins, Sam Darnold with the Vikings and the Seahawks. I mean, Geno Smith with the Seahawks as well. Like, it's clear you don't have to pay top of the line money for a quarterback in order to win. So I think that that'll be something that maybe changes. It's just tough though because it's like, I mean, if you can have like a Patrick Mahomes or a Josh Allen. You want those guys, but I don't know. I think you could see the market come down, or just more of a discrepancy between the top guys and those next guys. All right. Next up here, which NFL QB, current or future, would you want to build around over the next 10 years if you were starting a franchise?
Is Drake May a cop out answer?
No.
Oh, okay.
Why would that be a cop out?
Well, I feel like everyone would pick Drake May. I'm torn between him and Justin Herbert. I think those would be my two picks, just because Drake May is a little bit younger than Justin Herbert, but with both guys, you know exactly what you're going to get, and you know exactly how to build around them. Like, Justin Herbert has been so consistent throughout his entire career, and, like, all you need is an offensive line to protect him, and he's going to make the weapons significantly better. Now, he hasn't never had that in Los Angeles, but you know the formula, and Justin Herbert has always been an elite quarterback ever since he got into the league. And Drake May, like, he is so good. He can run the football with his legs. I think he's a great passer. He makes the wide receiver core better around him because he literally had no one last year, and he was almost an MVP candidate strictly on his own. Like, that offensive line had significant holes, and he took them all the way to a Super Bowl. Now, that had to do with a lot with Mike Vrabel and that defense, but Drake May was playing out of his mind. He had like 35 touchdowns. He doesn't turn the ball over that much. He's a great runner and athletic guy. So I think those are the two guys. I would pick Drake May just because of his age. But, like, those two guys really stand out for me because you know exactly what you're going to get. They're reliable. They don't get injured a ton. And if they are injured, they play through it. So I love those two guys, and I think they're great franchise quarterbacks to build with for years and years to come, even still.
It's a tough question because it's like 10 years, you know? It's like Josh Allen would be like 28, 38, 39. Is he still going to be a good quarterback at 38, 39? Like, I feel like even Justin Herbert's going to be like 37,
Yeah.
38 at the end of that. It's like that's old. I mean, definitely there's quarterbacks who still play well at that age, but there's not a lot of them. Oh, I feel like you want to lean younger here. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's tough for me. I think I would want to take someone from the last couple drafts because I think you're just maximizing the prime. I don't know. I don't know if this is a good answer. Like Caleb Williams, I still personally really believe in. Like that's a guy who over the next 10 years, I think even going into next season, I think Caleb Williams is going to be a lot better, but it's tough. I don't know. I kind of want to go Cam Ward, honestly, too. Just banking on traits, you know. Just I love the way that guy moves. I mean, he is someone who's able to evade pressure. I think he doesn't have the tendency to make as many like hero ball decisions the way that Caleb Williams does. I think he's a bit smarter with the football. That was another guy who last season, I mean, there was nothing around him, especially in the receiving core, and he played really well down the stretch. Obviously, he had his growing pains, but by the end of the season, he was playing really, really good football, and that's a guy who he has the traits. He's able to escape the pocket. He can make plays with his legs. He feels pressure really well, I think, and he just has an absolute cannon for an arm. So if you're going to give me 10 years to build around a quarterback, I mean, he's up there for me. I don't know if that's necessarily the definitive answer, but
That was a great pick.
It's coming to mind right away for me. I think the other guy's Jaden Daniels. It's tough because
Too injury prone.
yeah, it's tough because he only had 2 seasons, right? And one of them was really a magical ride, and he looked amazing, and it felt like he was a pro. But at the same time, then this season, the injury bug really caught up to him. So I feel like that's a risky pick, but at the same time, he's shown that he can play at a really high level. So that he's a guy who also interests me.
I also thought of Mendoza, but yeah, that was
True.
a weird one.
You never know though.
Yeah.
We haven't seen him play a snap of NFL football, so I don't know. You could also go like Arch Manning. You never know. But will he even be the first overall pick in next year's draft? Will he even be the first quarterback taken next year?
Crazy.
That's the question.
Mm-hmm.
That's a question for next year. Will we see an 18-game regular season? And if so, is it the right move?
We're going to see it.
100%.
They're
within the next 5 years.
When we're 100%. Old and gray, we'll probably have like 25 games, regular season games, by the time me and Evan hit like 70. But here's the formula. If you want to go 18 games, please, please, please put the Pro Bowl in the middle of the regular season. Do not put it after the playoffs and before the Super Bowl. It is so stupid. It is dying. No one cares about the Pro Bowl. When you are in the heart of the regular season and you have a bye week and you have like an all-star week, everyone gets an extra week of rest. When you're playing an extra game, you get more incentives for viewers to watch the Pro Bowl because they are longing for every week you get regular season football. Oh, I need to watch football this week. Oh, I need to watch football. They're more enticed because by the time the Pro Bowl hits this time around, they're already thinking about the Super Bowl. They don't care about the Pro Bowl, and half of the athletes aren't even playing because they're in Cancun or they're recovering from an injury. Like, you have to put the Pro Bowl in the middle of the regular season, make it so that every team has 2 bye weeks, make sure these guys are refreshed, make sure these guys are staying healthy, and then when you do that, you add an extra bye week. I mean, the Super Bowl, you could have a day off on the Monday because I think it's like Martin Luther King Jr. Day that day. Like, if you push it another week in the States, not in Canada, but like still, it just makes sense. Put the Pro Bowl in the middle of the regular season, add an extra bye week, and then you can add extra games.
Or just get rid of the Pro Bowl. I don't care about it at all. Honestly, I would not be mad if they did that either. I think you're right though. I think 18 games is a limit, and then you have to add another bye, even at 18 games, because I mean, like you said, the CFL, they have 2 bye weeks.
Yeah.
I think they're like 20 weeks, and they have what, 7 teams? It's crazy. Anyways, once you get there 2 bye weeks, you prolong the season. I mean, the NFL wants to make money. What's another way to make money? Play football an extra week.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that'll have to wait a few years because of the TV deals or whatever. It probably messes with that, but I'm sure that 18th week is coming sooner than we know. I mean, hell, they're playing the opening game this year is on a Wednesday
That's
because
crazy.
of I think they're playing in Australia on the Thursday. So it's insane. The NFL's going global, which is good. I really like that, but it is like the money. I feel like the money hungriness of expanding the season I don't like, because the one thing I love about the NFL and college football is every game is so much more meaningful. Like, one loss truly is the difference we've seen between like making the Super Bowl in some ways because you won your division and you got to buy the first week of the playoffs, and going home because you're a wild card team and you had to play the first week. Like, it is so crucial to like everything. I mean, we saw it with, what was it, the Packers and the Bears, or not the Packers and the Bears, the Packers and the Vikings 2 seasons ago, where it was like the Packers ended up being the 7th seed because they lost out on or it was the Lions and the Vikings, excuse me. But you can drop so far in the playoff rankings based on one loss versus in like hockey, basketball, baseball. No one cares if you lose a game. Like, obviously it's disappointing, but no one's like, unless it's like within the last week of the regular season, no one's like, that loss did their season in. So I just love that, and I feel like the more games you add, the more it takes away from that. So
I agree.
18 games would definitely be my limit. You'd have to incorporate 2 buys. I mean, I still think even if you don't have the Pro Bowl, I think having a week off between the conference games and the Super Bowl makes a lot of sense, because you're getting players a bit more rest, which allows to like have a better product at the end of the day. And I think that everyone's excited for the Super Bowl. Still, no one's gonna be like, there's nothing the weekend between like whatever the conference finals and the Super Bowl. I'm not watching the Super Bowl. Like, everyone's still gonna watch the Super Bowl. So I mean, they could have other events. I mean, they put NFL honors, I think, the weekend before. Like, do that. People will probably watch that more, but it's coming. I mean, we're going to start seeing games. They're going to incorporate more Wednesday games or like Friday games. That's the one I'm surprised they haven't tapped into more. I know like college football has some Friday games, but all the college football games on Friday are always like random teams that you don't care about. It's like James Madison versus Tulane or something, where most of the country, most of North America is probably not watching that game. I'm surprised they haven't tapped in the Friday market, because there's a dead day. Saturday's pretty much untouchable, I'd say, but Friday seems like a day where the NFL could definitely have another primetime game if they wanted.
High school is crazy on Fridays in the States.
True.
So
I don't care
would
about high
impede.
school football at all.
But like in the States, a lot of people would care about that. So I don't know. They would be conflicted, and I don't think they make a lot of money. I hate the NFL going internationally. I can't lie. Like, The other three leagues in baseball, hockey, and basketball, there's international players
Yeah.
because like there's an intrigue and like it's very high in those places. Like the NFL is dominated by America. Like it's gonna be American. There's very few going from overseas wanting to play in the NFL because there's other sports that are dominating those countries. And no 15-year-old fan is going to wake up at 3 in the morning to watch Sunday morning football and
Yeah.
watch all night. Like, it's just dumb. I think it should stay in the States. You're making a ton of money. You're just getting greedy at this point.
That's all. It's a business, man.
Yeah.
That's their job, making money. I mean, there's a ton of Australian punters and kickers these days, but
That's true.
it's going global. They all were soccer players when they came over here, but
Yep.
or rugby players, but that's beside the point. It is crazy though. I mean, even Canada, we have like less than 20 players in the NFL, and
That's crazy.
I would say Canada probably plays football the second most.
Yeah.
I don't know that for sure, but that would be surprised if there was another country that played football more than Canada, and Canada still only has like 20 NFL players. So
Crazy.
it truly is dominated by the States, and it is cool, I think, to see it go to Europe, and I think there is actually a lot of fans in Europe, but it is strange just because it's so predominantly American and it's barely played in any of these other places. Like I think you'd be hard pressed to find a football field
Yeah.
in any European city.
No.
It would be very difficult.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are one or two, but I think it would be hard to find. All right. We move on to our listener questions, Joseph. We've got quite a few here. Thank you
Nice.
again to Parker and Tyler for giving us some questions here. In the future, if you do want to give us questions, you can always DM us at BallWatchersPod on Instagram or TikTok. You can just DM us. Sometimes we'll put up polls to ask for questions as well. So if you would like to ask a question and you didn't have your question in this episode, make sure you go to Ball Watchers Pod on Instagram or TikTok. But we'll start off with this question from Parker. If CJ Stroud plays bad this year, will the Texans look to move on from him?
No, absolutely not. They're going to get a discounted rate for CJ Stroud, which I think is the exact position that you find yourself in, and you invest in that offensive line. Now, they haven't over the last couple years, which they absolutely should. But once they ensure that CJ Stroud is on a team friendly contract, I think they're going to protect him. And then you're going to see rookie CJ Stroud again. And I think that potential far supersedes tanking and getting a quarterback or trying to get someone in free agency. Just because, like, if you do get someone in free agency, you're going to pay $35 to $40 million. And if you try and get one in the draft, like, that means your defense is completely desecrated and you start at square one. So the best business decision and the best franchise decision is to, I hate to say this, but let CJ Stroud be bad this year. Send him on a team friendly deal. You're still going to make the playoffs. Like, this defense is too elite for you not to make the playoffs. CJ Stroud's going to be fine. You protect him. You maybe get him another weapon on the offensive side of the ball. And CJ Stroud's going to be absolutely balling come 2027. So I think CJ Stroud is in a prime position to keep his job. He should absolutely keep his job. He has not played up to his potential whatsoever. He is not an elite quarterback. But once you get that offensive line intact, there is no telling what this man can do. And you don't even need him to do that much. You are a defensive-minded team. You need to invest in that offensive line at the very least. Be a defensive team and be a team that runs the ball effectively. That should be priority number one. So keep CJ Stroud, pay him $25 to $30 million a year, invest in that offensive line, and you'll be Super Bowl bound in no time.
Dang it, man. I thought I was going to be the only one that had this opinion, but I mean, I think I talked about that conspiracy theory on the podcast a few weeks ago. I mean, just stay bad. Keep that offensive line in shambles just so CJ Stroud is terrible or has the opportunity to be a lot worse because he's running for his life every single play. You're going to get such a deal. But in all seriousness, I do agree. I think that there's no point with what you've seen from CJ Stroud in getting rid of him. I don't think another quarterback, number one, is going to solve the problems. And number two, they're a defensive team, like you said. And CJ Stroud did not really play good last year, and they were 12-5. So I think that if I'm the Texans, I'd much rather just like pay him $22 million like Malik Willis or $30 million and build around my defense. Think about how much money you save. I really don't think that they're a team who's looking for a franchise quarterback right now. I think they're looking for a guy who can be a game manager. And I think Stroud, in a lot of cases, has been a really good game manager. It's just, I think there's a few games, especially the Patriots playoff game, that leave a really bad taste in your mouth. So, yeah, I would keep Stroud if I'm the Texans. I don't see any reason why I would not be, number one, picking up that 5th-year option, and number two, paying him a pretty reasonable contract because I mean, I don't really think anyone else is going to pay him more on the open market.
No.
And if I'm CJ Stroud, I would stay in Houston because you see the potential there. I mean, the Houston has been pretty good at making the playoffs, I would say, over their
Yeah.
tenure as an NFL franchise. And it feels like literally the only thing they need is an offensive line, like
Yeah.
maybe a running back. But I feel like they have weapons in
Oh
the
yeah.
passing game. It's really just when like CJ Stroud just needs the time to throw the football to
Mhm.
him, and they'll be fine. And they did a really good job keeping that defense together this offseason. So if that offense is even marginally better, this is going to be a terrifying team going into next season.
Oh yeah.
All right, next question. I'm going to jump around a bit just because we're already at an hour. We're just
Dang.
chopping it up here. But Joseph, this question specifically directed
Oh
at you.
wow.
Should the Steelers do what the Broncos and Dolphins have done, shed cap and trade everyone away for a rebuild, or stay the course and try to win the AFC North? The Broncos, I feel like it was a few years ago and they really dumped
Yeah.
everything, but I mean, you got rid of Russell Wilson, you just ate that salary cap, and I mean, we're seeing what the Dolphins are doing now, cutting Tyreek Hill to Bradley Chubb. They traded Jalen Waddle, they traded Minka Fitzpatrick, like getting rid of everything, and yeah, just leaving Malik Willis surrounded by a bunch of just Joes, I guess.
Yeah. They should absolutely tank, but it's. I
I
mean,
feel
it's.
like that's what you want the most in the world,
I
man.
think yeah, that's exactly what I want.
At least when it comes to football.
Yeah, I've been adamant on the show that the Steelers, it's time for a change, and you can't change without losing. And I know that's such a terrible mentality, but at the same time, like these 9-8 records, these 10-7 records, they're like mediocre performances. We're winning by one possessions. The offense looks absolutely terrible, and the defense sometimes looks good, sometimes looks bad, and it's the same movie over and over again. And I don't know what the plan is for the Steelers at this point. Like, obviously, you're going to re sign Rodgers. He probably won't sign till July, which will drive me crazy yet again. But I don't really care at this point. The Rooney family is just all about a culture and the Steelers way. The standard is the famous quote in Pittsburgh, but like the standard has been mediocrity. And so you either win the Super Bowl or you have the first overall pick. Being in the middle is the worst place to be, and the Steelers have been in the middle for the last 10 years. And it's not like we're making the playoffs saying, you know what, there's a chance, because there's literally zero chance. And for most of these NFL teams, they make the playoffs. It's very exciting, and they have a real legitimate shot to like go deep. But the Steelers are a laughing stock. It's just absolutely horrible. So when you're at that point, like you're only fooling yourselves saying all we have to do is get in. No, this is different than other leagues. There are clearly higher teams ahead of you. I think they'll win the division again. I don't like the Ravens this year. I don't. The Bengals are the Bengals, and the Browns were in the dumpster. So probably we are the best team in the AFC North. But this is a terrible division, and we are one of the worst teams in the AFC. It's just sad. So please tank, but it'll never happen, and we'll just sign Kirk Cousins after Rodgers decides to retire, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, Cam Hayward in 2035 will be getting another 1 year extension at age 47 or whatever. But yeah, it's really funny with the Steelers because all of this like offseason projection, I feel like, is assuming Aaron Rodgers will be your starting quarterback,
Yeah.
and he's not signed. So I mean, Kirk Cousins is definitely out there as well, who probably would do pretty much what Aaron Rodgers does this season. But it is really funny that right now your starting quarterback technically is Will Howard.
I would prefer that over Aaron Rodgers. Actually, I would actually really, really like that.
I'm sure you are not the only person who feels that way, honestly, as a Steelers fan. It's crazy. Yeah. I mean, they're just not in a position to tank. All the moves they make are not tanking. Like, they signed Michael Pittman to a new contract. No one's trading for Michael Pittman. No
No,
one, I think, DK Metcalf maybe someone would trade for, but like, he doesn't have a ton of value, I wouldn't
no.
say, especially playing with the Steelers. And like, they just have so many veterans under contract right now. Like, Patrick Queen, TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, like I said, like, they're just not in a position to tank. And I think that they have done a pretty decent job drafting the last couple of years. I think
Yeah,
Joey Porter was a good draft pick. You have guys like Darnell Washington, but they're just like such a mix of veteran and not like and youth that they are an average team. They don't really have any superstars on this roster at this point, but they're not in a position where they can like tear it down because they would just get such bad return for all their players, and there's just so many of them that they'd have to pretty much like stop re-signing their players and stop signing free agents really to long-term deals. Like, they wouldn't be able to tank for like 3 years pretty much, which I
oh
feel
my
like
gosh.
just because of the way it's set up right now. I mean, at least 2 years, I would say.
Yeah, the heartache is real, dude.
So they would have to like decide this season and then slowly start to make moves, and then maybe next season you're like, okay, they're like 5-10 or something. You're
Mm-hmm.
like, that's pretty much tanking, and then go from there. But I don't know. They're so aggressively in the middle right now. It's pretty funny.
Yeah. The worst part is Mike McCarthy is the exact. He's
Yeah,
average. Like it's
exactly.
not even like they made a splash at the coaching position. It's
Mike
just
McCarthy's not going to want to tank. He would not have come out of retirement for this.
yeah. No, he's not gonna do that. Gosh, if we draft Ty Simpson 21st overall, I will lose it. If that's a possibility, I will lose it.
There's no way, man. There it can't happen. It won't
I
happen.
can't.
Don't even bring that into existence. I think I saw a mock draft where someone had the Jets taking him at like 11
They're 16.
or
Yeah, I keep
16.
seeing that as well.
Oh man, it's terrible. I mean, I just finished like the first version of my mock draft, and I didn't even consider Ty Simpson as an option.
No,
So
me either.
yeah, oh man, I can't wait to do our mock draft episode,
Mm-hmm.
Joseph. I'm gonna have to show you my 1.0 after this. We've got a couple more questions here. We're going to move on to Tyler's questions here. He gave us a couple good ones. Given how RBs have been so key to the last 2 to 3 Super Bowl winners, think Kenneth Walker, Saquon Barkley, is it time to consider them more valuable as a position of need than they have been previously?
Absolutely not. And I don't think that there's any value in the running back position, and I don't think there ever will be. And it's very, very sad because they do a lot of the work. But at the same time, it is all offensive line built and all defensive built. The defense allows you to get your offense back on the field quickly, and then you're just running the football down these teams' throats. But you need an offensive line to do that. So 2 years ago, Seattle has the worst offensive line in the league, like the worst. They draft Gray Zapel, they get Abe Lucas and Charles Cross healthy. They have a very good offensive line. That's when you see Kenneth Walker start to turn it on. 2 years ago, Saquon Barkley wins the Offensive Player of the Year, wins a Super Bowl with the Philadelphia Eagles. Last year, their offensive line was completely desecrated with injuries. Saquon Barkley does not have a good year because that offensive line is bad. The offense is dictated by the offensive line, and you can get running backs anywhere at any time, especially in the draft in the second and third rounds.
Even like the fourth or fifth round, man.
Exactly. So, like, paying a guy $15 million, I understand where Schneider is coming from. I still would have paid Kenneth Walker that kind of money because there are levels to the running back position. So, like, I agree that the running back should be paid, but not to the level where they're your most valuable. And it's like, we need this running back on our roster. They are very interchangeable. They are the most interchangeable position in football, in my opinion. And it all depends on that offensive line. If you don't have a good offensive line, I don't care how elite you are as a running back. The 49ers, elite running back, terrible offensive line. McCaffrey was dog shit at average running the football. So I think it's all offensive line dependent, and I don't think teams are really valuing the running backs, and I don't think they ever will.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Running backs and deep safeties, man, just they'll never have the value, and I think it's just the swing, right? Like, look at, for example, Bijan Robinson, who's one of the best running backs in the league, probably top two. Falcons suck. They haven't made the playoffs with him. Like, it just having an elite running back does not contribute to winning, and I think that's why there's no value. Like San Francisco, for example, trading for Christian McCaffrey, they were already a good team. I think an elite running back puts you to the next level, but having an elite running back with not much else around you doesn't do anything. Like the Falcons' passing game was terrible last year, even with Bijan Robinson, who's a great receiving back who draws people into the box. Like it was still kind of a disaster for a good chunk of the season in the Falcons' passing game. So it's a commodity that only the best of the best can really use, and that's why like Saquon to the Eagles. The Eagles were already one of the best teams rosters in the
Yeah.
league. Then you put Saquon on that roster, and he's an offensive player of the year. Kenneth Walker, a little different just because that wasn't like a trade or a signing, but still, he was played the best football of his career when the rest of the Seahawks team was good and deep. So, exactly what you're saying. It's offensive line dependent to a certain extent, and it's just your running back can be the best running back in the league, but if you can't throw the ball, if you can't stop the other team from scoring, it's irrelevant. So I think that's why the value's so low. And the other reason, like you said, is any running back who's like NFL caliber in athleticism, I think can be a serviceable guy for a season. He might not get you extra yards or be the highlight of your offense, but he's good enough to tide you over for a season. So I think that it's just not really worth it unless you are already right on the cusp of winning a Super Bowl. And those teams, I think, know that. Those teams also don't have the money to go out and pay a running back $25 million or whatever. So I think it's just the nature of the position, unfortunately, and just the way football is set up that it's never going to be important enough or valuable enough, I guess, to be like worth it. And I mean, when you look at it, I mean, there's special talents who get drafted in the first round, like an Ashton Genty, Jeremiah Love this year, Saquon, Bijan Robinson. Um, I mean, what was it? Sony Michelle got drafted in the first
Yeah.
round, I think, if
Mm-hmm.
many years ago, I guess, at this point. But you look at some of these other teams going back, I guess, the Chiefs when they won. Who are their running backs every single year they've won the Super Bowl? Like, I can't
I
even
don't
think of their
know.
names. Like Pacheco, I guess,
Yeah.
at one point.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who
Yeah,
did literally nothing.
exactly. Oh my gosh. Damian Williams, was that his
Yeah.
name?
Mm-hmm.
He had a great Super Bowl, I think the first time the Chiefs played
Yeah.
the 49ers. Like random dudes, and they still were the best team in the league. They still won Super Bowls. I mean, what? James White, Rex Burkhead,
Yeah.
um,
LeGarrette Blunt.
LeGarrette Blunt. Yeah, like just random dudes. Jay Ajayi on the Eagles Super Bowl team, or was he there the year before?
No, he was on there.
Yeah,
Super Bowl team.
exactly. Oh my God, what was that tiny guy who was also on that team?
Darren
Darren Sproles.
Sproles.
Yeah, like Corey Clement. Like,
Wow. You're taking me back, dude.
but that's what I mean. It's just like a bunch of random guys, and like you
Yeah.
think of some of these Super Bowl teams, like you can name like 3 running backs who played in that game and like had
Yeah.
an impact. So I think it's possible to get there, and it's almost like this luxury, but there's a certain point where that luxury is not worth it because it gets too expensive and it's just a detriment to your team. So I don't think it'll ever become worth it. And I think that's honestly why, like, for example, Seattle got rid of Kenneth Walker, and I'm sure that's probably partially why Tyler asked this question is because he's a little heartbroken about Kenneth Walker. But yeah, it's just there's not really it just wasn't worth it in John Schneider's eyes, and I kind of agree where it's just that luxury, the cherry on top, truthfully. And yes, Seattle did win a Super Bowl with Kenneth Walker, but I think that I mean, looking at it now too, they have a lot of holes that they need to fill where Kenneth Walker spending $15 million on Kenneth Walker maybe wasn't worth it.
I disagree. I think they don't have that many holes to me. Like corner is one, but Tariq Woolen was so bad for you last year, and like it gets to a certain extent where like you have a significant drop off in talent from Kenneth Walker compared to your running backs that you have in house. Like Emmanuel Wilson to Kenneth Walker, like it's not even close. So
No.
that one
Emmanuel
is a
Wilson
rarity.
was good, though. I do like
He
that
wasn't too
signing.
bad, but like yes, I agree with you. The running back position is overrated to me.
Yeah. Would I have been mad if Seattle paid $15 million for Kenneth Walker? No. Am I mad they didn't? Also no.
Oh,
I think that's where I land.
I'm just mad about the Shaheed contract, but that's different to
Yeah,
me.
exactly.
Yeah.
I also don't like that contract. Don't get me wrong, but it's I don't even know. 17 million for receiver is very different than
Yeah.
17 15 million for running back in the in on the spectrum of contracts
Mm.
at those respective positions. All right, one more question and then we are out of here. Can the Rams repeat their insane offensive efficiency for a second year in a row?
That's Parker for sure.
No, it was Tyler.
Oh wow.
Shockingly.
Oh wow. Yeah. I don't see a reason why
Yes.
they can't. Like they literally have everything. And like defensively they got significantly better. So this means like more reps for the offense, and I think a concern for me is their running attack, but I think it's more of a Sean McVay problem and not like a talent wise problem. To me, Kyron Williams and Blake Corum are one of the best running back duos in the NFL. It's just they never really get the opportunity. And I don't, there's potential where like the Rams, I've seen a lot of the Rams like trading up to get the third overall pick with Arizona and drafting Jeremiah Love.
That's ridiculous. That's so dumb.
But like there is potential where they can trade up, but at the same time, like this team is only going to get better. They're the best roster in football, in my opinion. I thought they were last year, and I still think that they are. I just want to see more opportunities with Kyron Williams and Blake Corum. And with that 13th overall pick, you could draft an offensive lineman to get even more better in the rushing attack and as well as protecting Matthew Stafford. But like Sean McVay is too much of a genius. Devontae Adams is the perfect pairing to Puka Nacua, where he's just, oh, I'm Devontae Adams. I'm an elite wide receiver getting one-on-one coverage. Like, let me hit a 50-yard bomb to Devontae, and it's
Yeah.
just easy money. So this Rams team is literally unstoppable. They only got better, which I don't know how they did because they were the best team in the league in it last year. They didn't lose anyone. They added Trent McDuffie and Jalen Watson, which was their only hole. 13th overall, they might draft an offensive lineman. They might trade up and draft Jeremiah Love. They might trade up and draft like a Sonny Styles or a Caleb Downs. Like the possibilities are endless with this team. This team is going to be the best team in football, and they should be the Super Bowl favorites this year.
Yeah. I agree. I think they're the best team in the league, and a lot of that has to do with the defense. The front, well, especially the front four is just terrifying.
Yeah.
I think that their linebackers aren't necessarily great, but at the same time, it doesn't really matter when your front four is that good. Their secondary is really good, so that interests me a lot. I think just seeing what they do in the draft. But for me, offensively, the only concern I have is that offensive line. Rob Havenstein retired, who was a absolute anchor at right tackle, and you lose your center, Cade Mays, to the Lions. But at the same time, like I said last episode, I trust Sean McVay with his offensive line. It's never bad. But if there was one position where you have a little bit of a concern, I would say it is offensive line because you currently have a 5th-round pick in Warren McClendon Jr. as your first or starting right tackle, and Coleman Shelton as your center, who has bounced around quite a bit so far. So that is my only concern. But at the same time, the other guys on that offensive line are really good, in Alaric Jackson, Kevin Dotson, and Steve Avila. So it makes up for it in some ways, where I think that you'll still overall have good enough protection where it's not going to be an issue. Matt Stafford is also great with the football. I feel like he's really good under pressure for the most part as well. So, yeah, I don't know. Doesn't concern me. I think they're going to be fantastic next season, and they'll be a bit more of a balanced team, honestly. So, that is going to be, yeah, it's just going to be tough to beat them next year. They're going to be the team to beat for sure. I'm really hoping. I want that opening game to be Seattle, LA.
I hope so too. They're my pet team. I really, really like the Rams a lot.
I don't. I don't like the Rams, but I do want to watch Seattle beat them, hopefully. So
Yeah.
that'll be interesting. All right, that does it for this episode. Oh no, I actually had one more question.
Oh
What do
wow.
you think of the new Titans uniforms?
I haven't even seen them, dude.
Oh, they're
I'm not
sweet.
gonna lie.
Okay. Well, they're
Sorry.
twists on the Houston Oilers uniforms from back
Ooh,
of the day. They're pretty
yes.
sweet. Um, yeah, that was my only
I'd
question.
I'd love to. I want to see those now. I love
I
the
might have to
Houston
get me
Oilers.
a Cam Ward jersey now. Now
Bro,
that they're not ugly.
the Titans, they're gonna go crazy. The Titans and the Saints are my dark horses.
Yeah,
I'm
I like
taking.
that.
Mhm.
Titans. Give me the Titans. That can be my pet team. I had the
Yeah.
Broncos last year. We'll see. I can't choose my pet team yet. We got to wait for the for right before the season. Maybe
Yeah.
we'll do that. We'll do that in our maybe like our the preview right
Mhm.
before the season. Who knows? We'll announce our pet teams for the year. We have to stick with them
Yes.
for the whole season. All right, that does it for this episode of the Ball Watchers podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you again to Tyler and Parker for sending in those questions. If anyone else wants to send in questions, like I said, Instagram, Ball Watchers Pod, TikTok, Ball Watchers Pod, DM us over there. Also, follow us, subscribe to our YouTube, I guess is a better way to phrase that. Ball Watchers on YouTube. We post every single episode over there. We're streaming every single episode live. So give us some love over there as well. And we will be back next week with some more Ball Watchers content. Stay up, Ball Watchers.